aid and the transportation, the way the transportation funding was, the board's desire to have the library maintain its certification, and the school department's desire to have funding an additional amount of $45,000. In round numbers, that put us in about $190,000 hole as of Friday. Is that Friday? All the days. Friday morning, right? Mr. Younger and Mr. Dow worked through the process. Mr. Dow spoke with the Board of Assessors regarding the overlay account. Mr. Dow, am I correct? They actually voted to transfer from the overlay reserve, so that the $190,000 deficit was erased, which would bring us to a balanced budget. The school department budget would be level funded plus 45. The general government budget would be a total of $10,132,291. That includes all of the changes that the board has discussed. I know when we met with some of the departments, they had concerns about particular line items and the ability to move those line items within the expense categories, and that flexibility until the budget's approved by town meeting, they can still prepare those, maintaining the same bottom line expense number. So that would bring us to a balanced budget, and the majority of that funding came from the overlay. Is that correct, George? Yes. On the back of your recap sheet, actually the recap sheet from Monday, on the back of the recap sheet from Monday, it totals out for you the changes in the departmental budgets, which total 469, reductions of 469,705, and then it shows the cell tower revenue, abatements and exemptions, and the voc tech, and so it shows a total of 766,931. Attached to tonight's recap, which should be the same as the one you received Monday evening, is a summary of the budget, exclusive of the final switching of the $300 a short while ago. I'd just like to, before I open it up to the board for discussion, I'd just like to make a couple general comments about the budget and the process. I am. It's always difficult. This year is certainly even more difficult than last year. There are cuts that are occurring throughout general government and the school department that I and others don't like. Not sure we could get everyone to agree on which cuts they like and which cuts they don't like. But I think that I, for one, am extremely pleased with the level of cooperation amongst the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and the School Committee. I'm also pleased at the ability of all of those groups to, unfortunately, prepare a budget in total that each group feels can try to maintain the level of service that the community expects. to my mind, the school committee in particular exhibited extreme leadership for this community. I've been involved in government, both in North Reading as well as in Stoneham, and I've never seen in my time I've never seen a school committee work so hard without being pushed, and that's really a tribute to them and their realization and everyone's realization that this is a difficult time. So I would like to, and actually Mrs. Vaca has joined us, so I would like to thank you and please express my thanks to your committee. The school department did vote unanimously on Monday evening for the budget as presented on your recap sheet. I think we were going to try to arrange a meeting for Monday to discuss. I'm not sure. We can't get that. Okay. We're meeting Monday anyway, so. But those are my comments. And again, I just to everyone involved, it's a difficult process, and it's certainly all the way around not where we'd like to be. But it's, I think it's prepared in the best interest of the community and within the community's ability to pay, and we have an extremely difficult process for next year, and it will be even tougher, as tough as I might have thought last year was. Next year is likely to be the worst of it. I think also that we need to be mindful as a board and as a community that the budget is predicated on the governor's budget, and both the House and the Senate need to deal with the budget, and they also need to deal with the fiscal realities of the state. And so we're not certain what that end result may be. We did have bad news earlier this spring of a $205,000 cut, and Mr. Younger and his staff worked to reduce that. I know the school committee, if they can, will contribute to that, although there's no commitment on their part, and if they can't, we've got that number under control, and that was also done with a great deal of cooperation and a minimum of pushing and pulling. Also to make the board aware in your packet this evening, we have a memo to Mr. Dow from Mr. Nelson regarding the retirement shortfall, which I know was a question for the board in the past. So that issue is behind us as well. I think again it's a tough budget, but I think we're, as a community, I think we're headed in the right direction. Those are my comments, and I'll open it up to the board for discussion. At some point, whether it's this evening or Monday evening, we need to take a vote on the budget in total so that Mr. Dow and Mr. Younger can prepare the warrant for printing. Does the board wish to? Mr. Westergaard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering if you could help me. I'm confused in reference to the process. Can you give me a brief synopsis of the process and specifically talk to the roles of the Board of Selectmen, the school committee, and the FinCom?
The goal of I think of all of those groups is to prepare a budget that's within the community's ability to pay, and to, for lack of a better term, horse trade as need be. There wasn't a lot of horse trading. I think the approach of the school committee from the outset was to prepare a budget that they knew the fiscal constraints of the community, and they prepared a budget accordingly. I think that Ward and it was really Mr. Younger and the department heads set forth on preparing a budget that would be not level funded, that would be lower. And I think that when we brought all the numbers together, usually finance planning team is a 6, 7, 8 meetings, something like that. When there were 2 meetings, I think. And when we brought all the numbers together, they fit together. They fit together pretty well. And again, that's a credit, I think, to the school committee in the preparation of their budget. I think we all looked to try as best as we could maintain the level of service that we provided to the community. We didn't achieve that in all counts, but we did. I think we all did the best we could.
I was under the impression that this year the Board of Selectmen was going to build a bottom-up budget. When we level fund at last year's budget predicated on the 60-40 split, plus or minus throwing around a few dollars here, I don't see how we're building a budget based on true needs. The fact that it came out because the school committee once again is taking the hit, so that makes it easy for everybody else. And I know you did benchmarking, but I still don't see any of the hard decisions made based on that, where we might be overstaffed or where we're taking hits to the general government. I don't see that this community is heading in the right direction, because again, the school system is taking the hit, and therefore the children of the community are taking the hit. And I'm not convinced that the government side has felt any of the pain that the school side has. And I don't know that we've looked at all, we've raised fees everywhere we can on the school side of the budget, and I don't see that happening on the town side of the budget. The fact that we're just raising the building permit fees since 1989 makes me think that there may be other areas that we could look at as sources of revenue. I don't think that we are going in the right direction in terms of eliminating staffing, once again, on the school side.
I don't think that we're not going to lay off for the sake of layoffs. We did use benchmarking, which showed us where we stood relative to other communities. And there were certain budgets that stood out, and those budgets were scrutinized much more heavily than others. We used a liaison process, so the liaisons so the individual board members could dig in deeper to individual budgets to understand why certain items stood out. Much to the chagrin of some of the other board members, because they didn't, and some of them commented to me that they didn't necessarily dig in as deep to certain budgets as we did in the past. Was it a perfect process? No. Was it a successful process? I think it was. I think that the general government budget is reduced $205,000 for the remainder of this year. There's a $469,000 reduction in that budget for next year. Again, I think part of it is people can disagree about what the cuts should be. The reference to the 60-40, that wasn't used in the budget process. We built the budgets before we put the revenues together. The reference to fees, as part of this budget process, all the liaisons discussed with each of their respective departments the fee schedules and how old the fee schedules were, and when was the last time the fee schedules were updated, and your reference to the building